Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and in today's video I want to talk a little bit about whether or not Tornado Shot, my beloved build, is viable in 3.15. I hope there's more videos of these to come with lots of different creators picking up their favorite builds and trying to make them work, but here is mine. So, Tornado Shot, something that I've played pretty much every single league since Delve League without fail, is here. It is working, but I wanted to talk about the investment required and the problems you may face if you want to pick up this build. So, there's actually three different ways that people are discussing talking about building this build now. There is physical based, actually four. Physical based, there is low life physical based, using like a Doomfletch and stuff like that. There is accuracy stacker, and then there is Dex stacker. So those are all the different ways, and this is just one of them. So there's tons more to investigate if this doesn't pan out, or if we can't push it to where we want it to go. But this is dexterity stacker. There's tons of different ways to skin the cat, but yeah, this is the one we're starting with. So this is pretty high investment dexterity stacker. To give you guys kind of an idea, it is using a 43 Exalt bow, which is definitely pretty intense. That's pretty on the high end. You know, it didn't feel too great before I put that on. I'll be completely transparent. So yeah, definitely a reasonably high budget build. I'm sure that you could probably achieve better results with a physical based bow using something like an Arborix, but that remains to be seen. I'll test that later on in the league, so that we can really map out how we can get to this build the most cost effectively, because, you know, it's TS. Who doesn't want to play this? So yeah, very, very good there. So this is dexterity variant. But overall, there are a few different problems that popped up for the build in 3.15. Obviously, after all the nerfs. The first one is damage. Of course, everyone's got this problem now. Getting more damage to like get back to where you were is definitely very, very important. Flasks, ailments, and movement speed is actually a really big problem as well. So, back last league and in leagues before, after the Raider buffs, you would start out as Deadeye to pretty much like kind of like bolster your damage, bolster the amount of arrows you had, bolster the amount of chains you had before you got really, really crazy gear. And right now, this character in the background is a Deadeye. It's not currently a Raider, and this patch made that that kind of early transition all the more brutal. It feels even worse to be a Deadeye now because you don't have the Raider onslaught, so you're really slow, and you don't have the flask uptime, so you have the Quicksilver, which makes you even slower. And on top of that, you're no longer ailment immune as a Deadeye. So overall, it just feels real bad, and it definitely makes things a little bit more difficult without lots of gear, which is obviously not great. So ideally you would be a Raider, but it's really, really difficult to get enough direct damage as a Raider without really, really good gear. So you can kind of see where we're having troubles here. Of course, maybe you can mitigate that by going Arborix. Maybe you can mitigate that by you know, something else. That remains to be seen. Alright, so let's dig into these things a little bit more. So I want to talk about the flasks. So the reason the flasks feel so bad is because bows generally relied heavily on unique flasks for a lot of their damage, as well as a lot of their utility. So one of the main defensive mechanics of playing a lot of the juicing builds was Cinder Swallow. It would basically be your whole life support, and it is absolutely not in a place where you can keep it up in any meaningful way anymore, which definitely makes it pretty difficult to stay alive in some cases, and in cases where you would live, you are now dying straight up. So it means you have to build a little bit more defensively, but overall it's just, you know, feels bad. You can definitely remedy this by getting a Stygian Vice with reduced flask charges on it. That's definitely going to be really, really good. It does mean that you can't use the Headhunter Leather Belt, but, you know, some people don't want to use that anyway. People think it's not too good anymore. You can also use a Overflowing Chalice, which you can see me messing around with here in this video. But the other thing, the main thing which you could do is you can use your skill points on the tree to get flask quality of life. Now, skill points have become this really, really, really important resource, at least as a ranger. You have so many different things you want to do with them. You need damage, you need utility, you need defense, you need you know, ailment immunity, and all sorts of stuff like that. That it becomes very, very difficult to kind of allocate them correctly. So to give you kind of an example here, you could take Primal Spirit as well as Druidic Rite. That's 4 points. And that would be really, really good. I think there's also more flask nodes around here as well. Yeah, more flask nodes here. You know, you can get duration and reduced flask nodes used, but you just don't have the points to do that. You cannot, because you need to take all of the defensive nodes, like all the life. Otherwise, you just have no life. I have no life right now either. You know, you should be taking Phase Acro. I can't even take that right now. You need to take enough damage because of the crit nerfs. You really should be going for Lionized Fall here. It's just you just pulled in so many different directions. Oh, there, by the way, you'd also need 6 points if you want to be ailment immunity as a raider. So it's just there's so much stuff. And like before, like I don't even have Wind Dancer yet. It's like you are really pulled in so many different directions, and you would like to have a cluster set up. I haven't even finished that yet. You would like to get a cluster set up to get some more damage, but you are so stretched thin, and what makes it really even worse is like you need to take Essence Sap now to make sure you have enough mana. And it's like, oh man, gosh, oh man, it's brutal. You need to use so many of your points just on so many different things now. It is completely crazy. So yeah, you definitely feel very, very stretched thin, and flasks, to fix that problem, you can't use your points. So you really do need to get on gear, but you're stretched thin on gear as well, and that just becomes really, really expensive. So the main problem though, first of all, on your Tornado Shot character is going to be damage. It's actually kind of difficult to get damage as a dexterity stacker. Without really, really good gear. So I'd probably recommend going dexterity stacking. I would probably go with a physical based bow like Arborix, and I would convert it to cold using Winter Spirit, as well as, gloves or something like that. That's the route I would go down, and I'd use like a Void Fletcher to kind of cheat single target damage. That's kind of how I would start out if I could do my time again. And then maybe you get into a really, really good Fizzbow later on, or maybe you kind of move into accuracy stacking or dex stacking later on. But yeah, that's kind of where I would do with it. Overall, projectile speed, we did get a nerf there on the chain gem. That didn't really feel too bad, so not too bad there. But yeah, damage is definitely going to be a big problem that you're going to have to solve. Before pretty much anything else, I was walking around with like 2.3k life until I felt good on damage, and then I brought the defenses in much later on. Yeah. So one of the things that's going to really, really bolster your damage is arrows on your bow, and that's why I keep recommending the Arborix bow. If you can't afford that, you can use Death's Opus. But yeah, I think physical based is probably the way to go. Dexterity stacking feels very expensive for what you get. Alright, let's move on to the ailments. So as a Deadeye, you really don't have a whole lot of options open to you. So you can go like 50% ailment immune here. You can get like, some on boots and chest, and you could maybe get over the line, but as I mentioned, you just don't have the points to go over here. It's not going to happen. So you can get freeze immune on boots. That's about as good as you're going to get, I think. You can try and get, some ailment immunity on your flasks, but you really need your flasks as a bow character for damage, and you're just trying to keep them up with the Overflowing Chalice. But yeah, it's like you are very stretched thin. So I would recommend for ailment immunity, you're just gonna have to take it on the head and just get freeze immunity over here. Then obviously get corrupted blood immunity on a jewel. That's basically how I solved that problem. I don't have freeze immunity, so I just die. But I'm getting there, one step at a time, everyone. But yeah, that's kind of the way you do with ailment immunity. But once you become a raider, it's actually pretty easy to get ailment immune. So once you're a raider, after you have really, really good gear, you do get obviously the 50% avoid ailments, and then you can get a further 20% on your belt as an enchantment, which actually gives you 20% chance to avoid ailments while you have elusive. And you get elusive by having boots, or you can also anoint it. I would recommend going with the boots, but you can obviously also anoint it, That's not going to get like a foolproof system, but most of the time it's going to give you ailment immune, and that's good enough. So that's 20%, that's 70% there, and then you just get a last little bit either on your boots or on your chest piece, and you're good to go. That's basically where you're going to be at. I'd recommend getting it on the boots because chest piece can get pretty dicey, and you want a lot of damage from that. So yeah, pretty good there, not too bad. So that's ailments. Let's talk a little bit about movement speed. So movement speed on Deadeye feels pretty trash. Just straight up, it feels bad. That's primarily due to the fact that you don't have the flask uptime, and like the fact that you're slow makes you even slower because you don't have more flask uptime. It's like really, really bad. So yeah, it feels pretty bad there. But when you play as a raider, I'm assuming this is going to feel much better because you'll be moving so much faster, attacking so much faster. You have so much better gear. You'll be killing monsters faster, keeping your flasks up even longer, which would make you kill and move faster again. So it's kind of this snowball effect, and that really compounds very, very well with Headhunter as well. And you kind of will just get better and better and better, and you'll get back to where you were before, which is pretty nice. I've said it once before, but pretty much the entire Deadeye Ascendancy can be mitigated with gear. You can get chain on a quiver, you can get arrows on a bow, and you can get tailwind on boots, right? It's like, you can literally get the entire Ascendancy over on gear, and once you have that on the gear, you can just go Raider, and it just feels insanely good. Yeah, so that's movement speed. If you get really, really good damage, you can also anoint freedom of movement, which obviously gives you even more movement speed. That's much, much later on, and I imagine people would probably be needing some pretty damn good gear for that first. So those are the primary things that you need to look out for with the patch and the nerfs. So overall, would I recommend you trying Tornado Shot? So overall, I can't remember if I mentioned in this take, but there's 4 builds pretty much in the end game right now. There is Elemental Hit, there is bows, so in general, like there's like, Ice Shot and Lightning Arrow. There's Tornado Shot and there's Spectral Shield Throw. And we're starting to see some other builds bubble up now, like Bowcock. That definitely looks pretty good as well. Once it gets refined, I imagine that'll be a really, really strong build. And we also do still see Cock Ice Nova floating around here. And I imagine that's going to make a full comeback after actually seeing people explain it to me. And I do think that that's probably going to be a pretty good one. So overall, I would say that, if you're looking to go Tornado Shot, I'd probably start out as Ice Shot or Lightning Arrow. I'd use a physical-based bow like Arborex. And also use Void Fletcher, and I would transition into Tornado Shot once you get better gear. I wouldn't start with it. It's a skill that feels only good with gear, but once you have the gear, you basically just delete the whole screen, and it's really, really nice. The only reason I start with it is because obviously I'm a diehard fan of it. But yeah, I would probably start with Ice Shot or Lightning Arrow because they have better damage scaling and you really need the damage early on. And I would definitely start physical based. I would not start dexterity based. It is very difficult to get the amount of damage you need without insane gear. So yeah, that's kind of my take, guys. Hope you guys have enjoyed this little bit of an update on Tornado Shot. If you would like continual updates on the progress of the build, let me know. I might show you guys what it looks like in its final state after all the min-maxing, or I might have a few checkpoints here and there after it starts to feel really good. I might update you guys again when I get Raider, and I'm starting to move real fast. But yeah, that's going to be the video, guys. Hope you guys have enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.